Why, hello there. I'm going to try something new, which I will call Topic Tuesday, where every Tuesday I have a topic that I discuss with you guys. I took the name from a podcast called Everyday Driver. But you know what? I don't expect they'll do anything about me stealing their title. After all, I'm a karate master. If they want to stop me, they can come and make me. Today's topic is board breaking. I wanted to talk about this because, as you guys know, most of my videos feature me hitting something like a heavy bag or a mannequin or a board itself. And any video that does pretty good always ends up with someone in the comments typing away and saying something akin to, "Boards don't hit back." They think they're imparting ancient martial arts wisdom on me. Boards don't hit back. Now, if you don't know, the line, "Boards don't hit back," comes from the 1973 film Enter the Dragon, starring the famous and great Bruce Lee. And there's a scene where Bruce Lee is getting ready to fight another famous martial artist named Bob Wall. They're out in this big courtyard type setting. Everyone's watching. They're about to get into their heated fight. They're squaring off with each other. And Bob Wall holds up a board and he smashes it in front of Bruce Lee with his bare hand. Bruce Lee, unfazed, says, "Boards don't hit back." Now, a lot of people have taken that scene as an indication that Bruce Lee was anti-board breaking. But I don't think that's what was going on. You can look up videos of Bruce Lee breaking boards. So if he wasn't into board breaking, he changed his mind at some point. I think he saw the value of it as a demonstration. I think all the scene was trying to communicate to the audience was that Bob Wall attempts to intimidate Bruce Lee, and Bruce Lee is unfazed by his intimidation attempt. I think that's all there was to it. Certainly, Bruce Lee was a big fan of using inanimate objects such as heavy bags to train one's technique. And yet, when I post a video where I'm using a technique on anything other than a living entity, somebody says, "Boards don't hit back." So, is board breaking wrong? Well, here's the thing. Board breaking is actually an excellent tool in the martial arts training repertoire. Let me give you an example. Imagine I'm teaching a 7-year-old child how to sidekick. Now, as you probably know, when you sidekick, you're supposed to hit with your heel, not the flat part of your foot. So imagine I take this 7-year-old and I plop him next to a heavy bag and I say, "I want you to hit the heavy bag with the sidekick and use your heel." And instead, the 7-year-old just keeps hitting the heavy bag with the flat part of their foot. And they're seeing the heavy bag wobble, and it feels really strong to them. But whenever I tell them to hit with the heel, in an attempt to correct it, they end up not feeling like they're hitting it as hard. So to them, I'm wrong. They don't believe me. Why should they listen to me and try to hit it with the heel when they're hitting it with the flat part and feeling real strong, getting that heavy bag to move all over the place? Now, if I go and grab a board, practice board or real board, doesn't matter, and I have that 7-year-old hit it, they could slam that thing with the flat part of their foot, and it's not breaking. As you know, you have to hit with the correct part of your body to successfully break a board, even if it's just pine, even if you're hitting with the grain. So I can very quickly show someone that their technique isn't right. And it's going to give them immediate empirical feedback. Something's wrong. And now that 7-year-old, seeing that something's not working, might actually listen to my coaching, because otherwise, kids don't listen. They need to feel like you've got something to offer first. And if they're doing it right in the first place, what could you have to possibly teach them? But they see they're not getting through that board, they're going to want to know how to do it. And then I can coach them into using their heel, and they'll use their heel and see the difference in the result. That is where board breaking is incredibly powerful. It validates the technique for a student. And that's why a Taekwondo belt test often includes a board break. It just is there to demonstrate that a student clearly understands the pieces you need to execute a technique correctly. Now here's where you run into trouble with board breaking. It is not in any way an indicator of one's fighting prowess. All it's saying is that you understand how to do a technique correctly, at least well enough to break this object. But if someone breaks a board and as a result thinks they can go around breaking other people without much difficulty, well, they're delusional. Board breaking does not translate into fighting. Again, it's simply a demonstration of your knowledge of a technique. Let's talk about that word, demonstration. There's something about hitting an object that bursts, that makes it much more appealing and eye-catching. And most of the general population doesn't understand anything about martial arts techniques. So you can imagine I could hold up a pool noodle and have someone kick it with a really awesome side kick or roundhouse kick. And it's not going to look like much of anything unless you understand what the technique is supposed to look like. If you get the nuance of it, you might go, oh yeah, that person did a really good kick, that's impressive. But if you're just general guy walking around, you're not going to know any better. So using something that has a display of power is eye-catching to people who don't know what they're looking at. And of course, demonstrations are great ways to get people excited about trying something like Taekwondo. I'm convinced that you could take a piece of styrofoam that the audience knows is styrofoam and hit it with a really hard kick, and they're going to see it explode into tiny pieces and be really impressed by that, just because that explosion displays the power behind the technique. So it's not so much about what you're breaking as it is about seeing the power of the technique in a visceral way. I'll give you an example. One of my favorite demonstration techniques is to do a tornado kick on a bunch of demo boards. If you've never heard of a demo board, they're real thin. I typically use them for kids, or if you ever watch like the Kukyuan demonstration teams, they'll use them for these elaborate jump turning kicks that are done way up in the air. They're not power breaks at all, they're acrobatic breaks. And so I'll take boards that aren't intended for power breaking and put a whole bunch of them together. And then I'll do a really hard tornado kick on them, and they'll just explode. You can go watch a video of this in the opening of my tornado kick technique video. I have a clip of it in the opening. And people love that. They just scream with enthusiasm when I do a technique like that, because they can see the power behind it. Say I could take an oak wooden board and kick that and break it, just one. Now that's harder than breaking all those demo boards. It's more difficult than probably breaking like, I don't know, 6, 7 pine boards of the same size. It might be even harder than that. It's so fibrous, right? Let's say I could break one oak wooden board. It's not going to look that impressive to people because it just doesn't have the same display volume as breaking all those little boards that are stuck together. Once again, it's not necessarily the material that's impressive to people, it's the image of the power. So if you're getting hung up on the materials, I wouldn't worry too much about that in the form of a demonstration. It's all about just showcasing the dynamic power behind a technique. And that always is going to look better when you see stuff flying. So I think board breaking is really valuable for those two reasons. One, it's a great way to validate techniques for students, particularly when they're beginners. And two, it's a fantastic demonstration. And that's why I use things like mannequins in my videos. It just looks really interesting to the eye when you see this human-shaped thing explode into pieces. Does it mean I could take that technique and beat someone up with it? No, you need a lot of specialized training to make techniques work in a combat situation. That's not what board breaking is about. It's just one piece of the training. If you enjoyed this Topic Tuesday, please leave a comment and tell me what you want me to talk about next week. If you find this valuable, you better leave a comment because I'm not going to keep doing these unless you guys give me topics. And then I'm happy to talk about them. But you got to leave a comment for me. Until next week.